Well, this is certainly a time of global uncertainty. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you luck. I know that this is, without a doubt, a time of nervousness and uncertainty and great change. We don't know what's going to happen week to week. Depending on what country you're in, you may have a better sense of what government help there may be. But none of us know for sure what's going to happen next week, the week after, or how long this crisis will even last. And so it's hard not to feel out of control and nervous, right? And very, very nervous and anxious. And so one of the things that has come up again and again in conversations with Montessori leaders is that crises are not necessarily the end of the world. And in fact, sometimes good things can emerge from them. So in this conversation, I interview Tim Selden of the Newgate School and the Montessori Foundation and the International Montessori Council, and also Michael Bourne of Virgin Islands Montessori School and the Peter Gruber International Academy. Both of them have faced great crises over the years. And in this interview, which I think you'll find informative, we actually discuss how did they turn their crises into opportunities. And then at the end of that, we'll also talk about how they might recommend you turn the crisis that we currently all face together into an opportunity for the future. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Mark Selden. I'm here with Tim Selden of the Montessori Foundation and the Newgate School, and Michael Bourne from Virgin Islands Montessori School. And what's the name of the secondary program you have, Michael?
Peter Gruber International Academy.
Peter Gruber. And
a lot of words, but we commonly go by VIMSIA.
VIMSIA. And Michael had a wonderful interview, I thought, with us last week. And I wanted to expand a little bit on that. So these two individuals have weathered many crises, and I'd say come out stronger on both ends of that. So I'd like to invite them to talk a little bit about what it's like to survive a crisis. Michael gave a prompt that I'd like to just give to both of you, which is, how can an opportunity come from a crisis?
Well, the Chinese character for crisis is challenge and opportunity, and the two words together form the character. So every time you have a crisis, you are facing a real challenge, and it is threatening, and there is pain. That's the definition, the stress, pain. And it is possible that you won't survive it. But for those that survive, there is the opportunity to create a stronger bond among the people of your school community and to become better known in your local community. And so the way you handle it with your children, with your parents, with your teachers, and with the external community around you, the friends, alumni, and so forth, can actually strengthen your school in very tangible ways.
Yeah, Tim, to expand on that scenario, our school's been built on a couple of different foundations. One of them, which is growth mindset, which is constantly featuring the ability to adapt and to improve. And no matter where you're at, there's a higher path if you're willing to change and to improve. And as much as one preaches that philosophy, human nature is to, find a sweet spot and stay in it and just like, I'll change while you lead and you change. I'll sit here and watch you change. And so you can preach a lot and lead and on a regular day, you gotta be frank about it. You get a lot of flack of just like, well, I'll change tomorrow. But when you hit up a crisis, you no longer have that luxury. Change is going to be imposed on you. And so a lot of things that you've been working on for years that you wanted to do, but couldn't quite get it done. In an environment of crisis where there is no debate, there will be change. It makes it more palatable, I guess, to then orchestrate how that change will look, because there's no longer debate that there's going to be change. And so you have to be prepared for that and then take leadership on that and implement that change. And hopefully it's not change for the sake of change, but the joy and the opportunity is change for improvement. And you have to have had that vision and where you want to go, so that when you have the opportunity to change, you're not changing the wrong direction, you're changing the right direction along the path of your vision.
Michael, I want to dig into that a little bit. So I'd say most of the time, most of us, we're overwhelmed day to day, and we have this notion of things that might be worth exploring, but we also have this if it's not broke, don't fix it mindset. And I think what you're saying, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that if things are already broke, now is your opportunity to revisit all those other things that you may have been aware of, at least somewhat aware of.
Touche. And I would double down and say not even things that are broken, but the crisis gives an opportunity to fix things that are perfectly fine. But they're fine at this level. And once again, we're talking growth mindset. I'm always trying to go from this level to this level. And that crisis gives you that opportunity. And I think the critical element and I certainly appreciate these chats, because it allows me to, as they say, unpack what I'm thinking, is you have to have envisioned where you want to go. One of the things I learned years ago, one of the common traits of great athletes is that they envision their play. So, I mean, the one that I always remember years ago, Michael Jordan did what the rest of the world thought was a phenomenal move. And he was interviewed by the reporter, said, how did you pull that off? And he just casually said, I have done that move 1,000,000 times in my mind. So when the opportunity presented itself, it wasn't a big thing for him. He had seen it in his mind. He envisioned this move 1,000,000 times. So when that one opportunity presented itself in a second's window, he was able to deliver the move. And I always remembered that. And they say that that's a common denominator of many successful athletes and others, that they envision where they might be one day. And so when that opportunity presents itself, they don't have to scratch their head and say, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? No, they've been there mentally. And so now finally, I've been waiting for this opportunity for 50 years, and my God, it's here.
You've been mentally rehearsing, and now you can.
Yes.
So Tim, what about you? Would you say that this sort of mental rehearsal or envisioning is important to turning a crisis into an opportunity?
Well, yes and no. I mean, in my mind, one of my sayings is clarity is the key to success. So every Montessori school in the world is a school of choice, which means that whether it's a publicly funded school or a tuition-based school or something where some external funding source other than the government is underwriting it, parents don't have to choose it. It's for them, it's a serious decision, and it involves some level of inconvenience or a serious level of investment, including the flack you might get from your mother-in-law and your friends about why you made that educational choice. Because we're schools of choice, every Montessori school has to have crystal clarity about its core values, its culture, its, what makes it that particular school, its unique identity and way of doing things. And with that is not only where we are today, what we've achieved, but what would we do if money was no object? How good could it get? So you have to have an idea of where you're trying to get to. Now, there's a saying from Google that organizational culture eats strategic plans for breakfast. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I've seen board after board or owner after owner basically meander around the desert thinking, should I get a school? Should I add on a toddler class, a high school, an elementary, open a second location? Ultimately, there are many different things you could do. But if you don't know why you're doing them and who you are and why someone would choose you as opposed to your competition, you've really missed the first step. So one of the opportunities in a crisis is the opportunity to go back and re-examine what would it matter if your school failed? Who would be hurt other than you, your teachers? But I mean, what value is it to the community? What makes it distinct? And I believe it's the unique character and experience that we deliver kids. I don't mean buildings, I don't mean programs, because all of those evolve, buildings come, buildings go. But what's the enduring character that your school really stands for, the unique benefit it's giving children? I think that the first step to surviving a crisis, in addition to all the obvious, controlling your budget and, getting sources of money and convincing parents to stick with you, the getting parents to enroll and re-enroll and stick really comes back to that culture. What is the relationship between this school of people and this community of parents? And who loves us? And not everyone does. And why would they love us? And how do we get them to renew their vows?
Culture is a fascinating topic when it comes to schools. It's amazing how much they vary, right? Given that we all share so many of our common values. Michael, I'm curious, do you see culture playing a role in your school's survival from the hurricanes?
Of course, yes. One of the things, I don't know why it pops in my mind of, lead, follow, get out of the way. And our school has clearly been a culture and a DNA of leadership. Our Montessori program is 54 years old. It's, around when people didn't know how to spell Montessori, much less now where it's a whole lot more widely accepted. But we've always had that mantra of lead and not, wait for somebody to anoint us or to show the path. We've taken on the path. And so, for instance, once again, with our immediate future, which has been tarred with crisis, after the hurricanes, we led. We didn't wait for the government to tell us what to do. We were the first ones to close here in the Virgin Islands with the COVID-19, where we saw the writing on the wall. And so we stopped campus life and went to distance learning, and others followed. And so that has become like our DNA. And so when people in the community, going back to Tim's point, where they're looking for what do we stand for in the community, we stand for educational leadership. It just doesn't happen overnight. I mean, this has been years on the development.
So in the various crises that you've encountered, what role did the work you did beforehand play in the kind of organization that you led out of the crisis? Now, I've heard a couple things. I've heard about having a vision. I've heard about the importance of culture, having a strong sense of I think the phrase Tim used was the ideal, what the best you could be. So that's sort of the pre-work. Are there other pieces of pre-work? And if not, what would be the next step?
In this COVID crisis, it's allowed us again to reflect, and it builds on itself. Our school has actually gone through a fire, which was several years ago, and we lost the building to a fire, and within 2.5 months, we demolished the building and rebuilt it. And it kind of becomes, as I said, we become an expert to crisis, unfortunately. But it's kind of like the self-fulfilling prophecy of, well, you did it before. And so now we, once again, we've developed a reputation of being able to handle a crisis. And so when a crisis hits, they look to VI Montessori School for leadership. And it's the culture that we've developed, and it's not just Michael Bourne. It's the mantra of the school, the parents. The community knows that our school, our families, our teachers, our staff will respond to the crisis. And that has happened by, and your question is right on cue, it doesn't take crises. In fact, the crisis is just the blossoming of what you've done in the past. And I would venture to say it literally starts a student at a time, a parent at a time, and you show that caring and desire and energy to address each child's education. And so, that you develop a confidence from the parents and the students that this school will indeed take care of my education, of my son's education, my daughter's education, and you build on it from there. And if the old story, Mark, put up or shut up, talk. And that's one of the things that, parents say, is like, it's easy to have a marketing director and a campaign and a slogan and a this and a that. But it's, what have you physically done to show who you are? And so the crisis is just a small bud on the tree. It's the deep roots that you've planted in the community that make the bud manageable. Not that I want more crises, believe me. I think I've had my dose.
Yeah, I think you've had more than your share, far more.
But if you plant the trees deep, the roots deep, you're right.
Very fair, very fair. I'm going to throw a question to you, Tim. So to preface, so in our last conversation, one of the things that Michael and I explored was how the various crises he experienced were mostly related to the locality that he was in. It was like, the Virgin Islands, in the case of the fire, it's his campus. These are crises. I don't mean to downplay them, but what we're experiencing right now is definitely a macroeconomic event. Now, I want to take you back a little bit, Tim, to the 1980s when you were running Barry, and maybe the 1970s too. And there were definitely some major macroeconomic events that hit us. Mm-hmm. Now, I remember you struggling when I was a little boy with VisiCalc. I think it was VisiCalc, with the very earliest spreadsheets. And you weathered some very intense crises that were macroeconomic, financial crises. I'm wondering, that was a long preface, I'm wondering if I can take you back to one or any of them and ask you, how did you navigate those, and how did you come out stronger the other side from those macroeconomic events?
Well, first off, it was sheer determination. The will to keep the school alive is probably the most important thing. And if the board and if the leadership look at it from a simple business perspective, they'll often cut their losses and simply say, either we can weather the storm and it's dollars and cents, or we can't weather the storm and it's dollars and cents. And I think with Montessori schools, or with any private school, they're usually not very good business propositions. Doesn't mean they need to lose money, but there's better ways to make money than this. This takes a lot of energy. And I think that ultimately it really begins with that sense of leadership and culture and an unwillingness to let this child die. Because the schools, whether you're a trustee or a school administrator, if you're good, you think of this as if it's a living being in and of itself, and you're a trustee for it. It's yours, and you do everything you possibly can to save it. And that's where the energy comes from. Now, getting people to care about your situation, sometimes I think that's a roll of the dice. Obviously, if you're successful, it's because you were able to attract enough good teachers, keep enough good teachers, keep putting out there your message of what's your unique identity, convince enough parents to stay at the school, convince enough parents to come to the school, and you weather the storm, and you just refuse to give in. I think the biggest challenge here is that the things that I went through were either macro in the sense that they were the great inflation of the 70s, which by the late 70s, when we hit a recession, we had double-digit inflation for years, and most private schools had not kept up, which meant that our budgets were far less than what we needed to operate, and a lot of repairs and maintenance have been deferred, and it all caught up with us after about 8, 9 years. And so we all had to do major adjustments to rebalance our budgets. Then there was the situation with our high school, which happened in 1990. We were leasing on a 20-year lease to purchase option, a really big building, and we were given 18 months. I was actually down where you are when I learned that we had 18 months to get out of our 250,000 square foot high school building and replace it. And that was a crisis. Again, we survived it because we brought the whole community together. We laid it on the table and said, you know, what do you want to do? We can sell this land. We can close the school. I think I had property out in Columbia we could have moved the school to. And the parents said, no, we want it to live. We want to stay where we are. Let us work together with you. And sometimes that's how it works. The challenge today is everyone's been hit economically, and we all need help, and we hope we'll get some from the government. But we're going to have to do fundraising, and we're going to have to do a lot of selling. And so once again, it's the question of what can you do, whether it's in a small school like Renaissance, where you are, Mark, or a large school like the two that you run, or the one with two names, Michael, or the medium-sized school that is Newgate. They'll make it or not make it based on our ability to convince parents to get behind us. And it's not going to be easy because they're all frightened and hurt.
You know, I want to just add a little thing to the story of Argyle, the high school that Tim mentioned. You know, the funny thing about that school is it wasn't really a very attractive building. It was huge. It was a monstrous building, but it wasn't gorgeous. And the end result of being kicked out of that building, that crisis, was that you got to build your ideal Montessori high school building. Mm-hmm. And so the end result was actually a positive. If you look at it, that was an opportunity that came out of a crisis right there. Wouldn't you say?
No, I simply nodded my head and said, yes, it was also 3 years of living hell. But yes, it was.
Bill's character, Tim. Bill's character.
He's got lots of character. All right. Well, I think to round up our discussion, I would like to just ask you all your thoughts about what schools should do right now in this present crisis to turn it into an opportunity. Now, I just want to throw a couple things out that I'm seeing. For one thing, I think the fact that everyone is forced to adopt virtual learning means that I think we're sort of we're changing our minds. You know, we're learning a lot, and I think that the common notion of pedagogy is going to change in this country, maybe throughout the world. I myself would not like to see face-to-face education disappear. I don't think it's a substitute, that online learning is a substitute, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the opportunity that comes out of this, that we start moving some of the things we do online in a more regular fashion. In my case, what I'm doing at my school is I'm turning this crisis into an opportunity to support my parents and for them to see how committed that we are to them. And we are. I mean, we are very emotionally committed to our community. So we're doing everything we can to make sure they know we're around, we're available, we're sharing resources, we're doing everything we can to make sure that they understand, hey, we're here for you, not just as a school, but emotionally. We're here for you as a community. So, but what are your thoughts, Michael?
Well, just, 20 minutes ago, I had a conversation with one of my teachers, and out of this global crisis has come one benefit, is that I think the respect and esteem for teachers is going to take a massive jump upwards. Parents have now been broadly awakened to the yeoman work teachers do. And so chalk that up for one benefit of this crisis. Parents now realize that teachers are really angels pursuing a livelihood. The other scenario, and right now as we speak, Mark, I got to tell you, I'm not sure if I'm at the point of conclusions, other than the fact that there will be massive changes. And the question is, which direction are those tea leaves going to blow, so to speak? out of this distance learning may come one, I'm not doing that again. I'm sending my kids to boarding school and you're keeping them, so to speak. And we want physical learning. Could be one outcome. I tried the other side and I'm coming back. The other could be, as you articulated, this distance learning thing's not too bad. Saves me commute, da 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 da. And then what I'm trying to wrap my head around is what's going to metamorphose out of those two thoughts is the combination. What's the new model going to look like? And I think that's where we're probably going to end up because, look, there's clearly benefits to distance learning that we've been forced to learn in the last 2 to 3 weeks, or in some cases 6 weeks. But there's also, it's exposed the benefit of the human beings. I mean, I think innately human beings are social people. Having them be socially distanced is not a natural thing for the human body. So I think you're going to see a greater emphasis on wanting that social interaction. But at the same time, hopefully we can create new models that extract the benefits of distance learning. So we're in the transformative stages here, trying to figure out what that new model is going to look like.
Fair enough.
I suspect that the new model is really going to be outside of our hands. It's going to be in the way parents in a particular community feel about things, whether they feel that they want conformity, send the kid to the neighborhood school, just get over with it. In some places, that may be a choice that makes a lot of sense to people. In other places, there may be real concern about the local schools, and that may not be even on the table. In the same way, there could be parents that really are grateful to the schools or really resentful. You took my money, you didn't deliver what I signed up for, I'm unhappy, and whatever I'm going to do, I'm not doing with you. We don't know. We don't know what their mindset will ultimately be. And I think what's realistic to predict is some will run away or drift away. Others will cling to us more tightly. And we will have to build a new community from those who are still standing with us when it's all over. And to get through it, the only thing I know how to really focus on is, pay the bills you can, defer the bills you can't, raise money, look for SBA loans and other things, and really, really, really try to strengthen or develop the sense of community and identity and gratitude that people feel towards your school, your teachers, and the relationship they have with each other. And that's never going to work perfectly. So don't let the what I always call the parking lot mafia, the people who are really unhappy, ruin your day. There's going to be plenty of them out there. They've got the perfect excuse to belittle us, and why would anyone spend money on non-public schools or anything other than traditional school?
But Tim, that's the opportunity we have that we need to really focus on. And when we talk to the larger community of Montessorians, is that the main job now is befriending, beholding your school and taking this crisis and emphasizing it by your actions, displaying to your parents indeed why you are so important, why without our school, your family wouldn't be the same. Will we make mistakes? Tim, we fess up to mistakes every day of the week, but we do it with the right intent that we're making mistakes in the pursuit of progress. And we're not going to let, this morning I talked to 2 parents because they were having questions. And, we're not going to let one parent, feel disenfranchised out of this. In fact, we're taking this as an opportunity to double down on these parents to say, God, now I know why we enrolled in Vimsia. This school rocks. This leadership team is really bought into education. And even in spite of all the billions of things that are going around, and as you said, Mark, that this is the global thing. But despite all these global tragedies, VI Montessori School and Peter Gruber International Academy is doubling down on educating my child. And you know what? I don't see that happening across the street. I don't. But now I know exactly why I'm enrolled at that school. And that's the attitude we take.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Do either of you have any final thoughts before we close on how to turn this present crisis into an opportunity?
Don't get discouraged by the things that you could have, should have done 20 years ago. Let this be a day that you begin to figure out what you wish you had done and begin working to achieve that, and learn from the experience that you're having so that you're better prepared for the next time something goes wrong, and you end up with a better school in between crises. I mean, crises are the exception. And don't lose your way. I mean, we're going to go through grief. Our parents are going to go through grief. Teachers are going to go through grief, because the world has been upended compared to what it was a few weeks ago. And so one of the things we want to do is be there for the parents, as Michael said, and strengthen those relationships, and know that part of that is, without being their therapists, we are essentially their family, their extended family. That is what will get us through.
Absolutely right, Tim. And despite this interaction here, I mean, what's the critically most important thing right now for school administrators is to get the finances in order, because, as I say, money talks and everything else walks. And right now, Hail Mary for the SBA injury loan, for the PPP, and other sources of revenues. Everybody in administration needs to be thinking how to maximize revenues so we can continue down the road. And one of the things that we're so pleased at is that we're still getting tuition checks coming in. That's a sign of a parent that's committed to what we're doing, and you need to double down on that and pursue every and each avenue of funding. Rural development has a program. You need to just become completely indoctrinated with all possible sources of funding to get through. And going back to that vision thing, is if you know what your vision is, not only are you looking for revenues and sources to address the immediate crisis of tomorrow morning, how do we stay afloat until April 30th to May 30th to June 30th, but how can we get to 2025 to 2030? Because out of this, you might find avenues that, that was a goal, and now I see there's actually a program that can get me there. And so you need to really open up thy mind and see different avenues. And look, we say it all the time, we're in pursuit of progress, of excellence. And there are a whole lot of different roads to excellence. And in a crisis, more roads are opened up. And you may not travel down the one you were on. There may be a different path that you have to take. And we as administrators and leaders of schools have got to open up our minds and look at all alternatives.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you both for your time today. I think this was a very useful video, and I will be posting it on YouTube sometime very soon.